Hey, it's Tim here. I haven't made a video in a long while. Essentially, I've just been under the weather for the last couple of months. I've had colds, I've had flus, I've been busy, life's taken over, but 22.1 is about to come out. And so I'm back with another video going through all the features that are coming soon in 21.3. In the coming weeks, we'll obviously start covering all the videos to cover all the new features in this release. But for now, let's have a look at what's available on the website. As I go throughout this video, there's going to be timestamps sort of covering all the sections. So after the overview, if you just want to jump to a specific section and find out more about that, go to the chapters on your phone or on desktop and skip ahead to that section, or just go to the description, open that up, and there'll be timestamps there to jump ahead and skip to the various bits you're interested in. Okay, so here we are on the coming soon page. Tableau normally releases this with about a month to maybe a month and a half to go. This came out last week, so I think 22.1 is probably going to land towards the end of March or maybe early April. It can always shift a week or two here while marketing get their stuff in order. But also, if you head to Tableau Online, some instances of Tableau Online have already upgraded to the latest version. So actually, if you're using Tableau Online, some of these features on this page might already be available to you. But let's just take a quick high-level overview of what's coming in this particular release, and then we'll probably just go into each of them in a little bit more detail in the future, of course, but also in this video, just digging into what they are. So we have the Workbook Optimiser, a new search experience, Ask Data Phrase Builder. Ask Data's been getting a lot of love every single release, so it's no surprise that that's still here. Enterprise Deployment Guidelines, Background Resource Limits, Customizing view data, data freshness Parquet file support. So it's always interesting. Tableau always put these capabilities in sort of an order and in grouping. So data freshness is the category, and that is essentially relating to a new connector that you can connect to. So that's what that is. We'll go into this in a little bit more detail. New accelerators on the Tableau Exchange. The Tableau Exchange has been around with us now for a release. I was pretty critical of this in my video. I kind of watched that back and I thought, man, you really went in on that thing. But nonetheless, hopefully there's an opportunity for Tableau to improve over time. New connectors on the Tableau Exchange. We'll get into that. Tableau Server independent gateways, hyper spooling monitoring, Slack integration for monitoring, swap with root table for the data model, TabPY model evaluation function, so a new function for TabPY or specifically Python functions, filter performance optimization, improvements in Esri web data connector, so essentially the way you connect to Esri, which is a mapping capability that's independent of Tableau, but Tableau works pretty nicely with it, and Tableau is improving that relationship. A new toolbar for visitors, a web authoring improvements, so web authoring improvements is like a catch-all for web edit getting better. So in essence, web edit is behind desktop editing experience, and so when they say web authoring improvements, what they really mean is we're playing catch up with the desktop experience, and the idea is that eventually it will reach parity or it will be better than desktop experience, in which case at that point the web and desktop are pretty much on par, and therefore it's easier for Tableau to just deploy Tableau through the browser, not having to wait for software installs and so on and so forth. So again, we'll get into this in more detail. View acceleration, automated identity migration, usage-based publishing, frequency for admin insights, linked tasks with prep conductor. I believe this is an enhancement to the previous release of this. Viz load times, data source for admin insights. So essentially a new data source that talks about viz load times, parameter enhancements in Tableau Prep, customer data platform accelerator in Tableau Online, prep flow notifications in Slack, virtual connection support for Salesforce data, so essentially the ability to create virtual connections for Salesforce data sources, which is super interesting. I'll come back to that in a second. Improved Oauth login processes, virtual connections integrated with the Tableau catalog, and lastly, the Embedded API version 3.1. So the .1 release is normally, I call it sort of the spring release. I sort of think of this as the release where Tableau put in all the groundwork for the awesome stuff they're about to do throughout the year. So you might go through this list and it might just mean absolutely nothing to you. It might mean like, you know, all this stuff is just little tidbits. You probably will only have an affinity with 2 or 3 of these features if you use Tableau every day. If you're an admin, you'll love some of these. If you're an author, you'll love some of these. If you're just a plain old user, you'll love some of these. But none of these are sort of big hitter, sort of wow features. There is a couple, but none of them really sort of stand out on the same par as something like the data model, right? And the reason that is because, again, it's foundational work. These are things they have to sort of get right before they can really bring out the features. It's normally the .2 or .3 release that really come out with the headline features, the features that sort of carry the whole release, if that makes sense. Now, let's get started with this page. The first feature is the Workbook Optimiser. And what I love about this page is it has GIFs of how things work. Now, the Workbook Optimiser is not sort of as it sounds. It's not going to go in there and optimize your workbooks, but what it will do is it will show you things you're doing that are not necessarily based on the optimum experience. So you can see here a little GIF on the right-hand side. You've got a little pop-up, a modal that turns up, and it basically gives you a bunch of things to check. It does 12 checks initially at launch, I believe, but it will do more in the future. That's something that Tableau have said it will improve on. And essentially the checks are basically checking for best practice guidelines around Tableau dashboarding. The whole point of this is to try and surface knowledge about building dashboards that's not necessarily apparent if you've learned Tableau maybe self-taught, or if you've just learned on the job, or if you've maybe just picked up what you've seen elsewhere, or maybe you're using things that you think are awesome, you've seen them on Tableau Public, but you're maybe not using them in the right place. The Workbook Optimiser is going to try and give you some insights as to how you can improve those sort of sticking points and make the experience for the end user better. And this starts off with things like performance, but it also will eventually in the future move to things like accessibility guidelines. So that's something that's really sort of powerful. And what I like about this is it actually gives you feedback. So it checks your workbook. It looks at very basic things, the number of rows you may be displaying all at once. If you've got big tables, that will obviously come up here as a sort of a warning, but it's also sort of got a red, amber, green indicator. I mean, Tableau doesn't typically stick to those colors, but here we go. We've got red, amber, and green indicators telling you sort of what's going on. And each of those gives you an action. It says, hey, look, the workbook contains this number of sheets. The number of sheets will do this to your workbook. And then you can say, well, maybe I can build this in one sheet. Maybe I can do this in 2 sheets. Maybe I can use less sheets because the user's not actually using half of these sheets. And it also tells you what you have done well. So it doesn't just tell you what you've done badly, it tells you what you've done well. So I think this is a really nice feature. What I hope this does is not only starts to surface this for authors, but I'd love this to become an API so that admins can go in, check the whole server, pull out the workbooks that score really poorly, maybe set a threshold, and start to use this as a way of helping people progress through governance in an organization in a sort of much more structured way. But I think it needs to have all the tests and capability built in. And at the moment, it's still at launch, 12 checks. I'm hoping this sort of goes out to more. And I'm also hoping you get control about which checks it does and how they all work. So really looking forward to see how this lands, especially when people start getting to this. I'm pretty sure this is already available on Tableau Online, so go check it out there. But otherwise, check back in a week or two when I make a video on this feature. Now, the new search experience. Now, search is one of those things where you don't really know it's better until you've been using Tableau for a while, and then they change the experience. For everyone who's starting Tableau today, they'll never know that search wasn't great. This new search feature, I think, is going to work a lot better. I've seen this in demos. I've seen a couple of demos of this, and I genuinely think that it is going to be better. It's one of those things where you can't really know for sure how well it works until you actually need to find something, and you go in, you search, and the first few things that it shows you are actually what you're looking for. And what they've done here is they've essentially changed the algorithm behind the way it searches around specific criteria. So it's quite intelligent. I'm not going to bore you with all the details. I'll do this in my full explainer video of how I understand this. But nonetheless, the search experience, when people go to the top right and search something, it's going to be much improved. It's going to have a much better hierarchy. And you can see here it's even got the ability to filter things in I think a clearer way, something that you're more familiar with seeing on the web today than maybe what we had in the past, which was a little bit clunky in places. So this is going to be a nice touch. The Ask Data phrase builder. Now this one's interesting because Ask Data has sort of been improving, and it's one of those things, it's one of those features actually that when you come out with version 1 is not what you intend to actually ship. Version 1 is very much a journey that you sort of embark on with your customers. Now, more recently, I'd sort of say we got version 2 of Ask Data. It started to have a much more well thought through interface, an interface that sort of helps you build questions, but more importantly, they added the ability to only let you use Ask Data where a lens has been created. And the lens forces a sort of specificity around the question that you're trying to answer. And because of that, the questions are going to be better. So if I create a lens about shipping data, then I'm only going to be looking at shipping data in my sort of order data set. What they're doing here is actually adding to that capability of building phrases. So what you can essentially do is use this new feature to build different types of questions. They're essentially sort of guiding you, the user, through how to use it. And what I think will happen over time is as you start to understand the way it works, you will start to understand sort of how it expects these questions to be asked, but also how to get stuff out of it. In every single application, every single tool, there's always like a hack. I'm going to call it a hack, but there's always sort of a way of doing things that works really well with the application. And once you know it, it's amazing. It's a bit like Gmail and search. You can just go ahead and type what you're searching for and it will find it, but you can actually add search parameters that can filter things down. The same in Outlook, same in other tools. This is the kind of capability that's sort of building into our state here. So I think this is going to be fantastic for those people who are using this. But again, if you're an author, you probably don't use this. You use the Power Tool, so it might not be a big thing for you. Okay. Next one is enterprise deployment guidelines. So this is essentially a change in the guidelines around how to deploy Tableau. And it's been sourced by basically looking at infrastructure all the way down to the, they call it bare metal. I'm not a developer, but they call it bare metal because they're really literally looking at how the software performs on the infrastructure that most people run, the actual silicon itself. And so what they've come up with is a improved set of enterprise deployment guidelines that give a standardized spec and they give a standardized route for deployment. And this is important because companies spend a lot of time and effort sort of tweaking their servers, trying to get the perfect sort of alignment of features. And so what this should do is should just highlight, look, this is the setup that we've tested and we know works. So just go get this, install it. And also when things start to go wrong, if you follow these guidelines, Tableau are more likely to understand what's going on. Whereas I think a lot of support requests today, Tableau will spend a lot of time and energy trying to understand your setup first, and then they can start to help you. So I think this will be really nice. I've probably maligned this a little bit, so be sure to sort of check my video out when I go into this in more depth. Okay, if we go to the next one around background resource limits, essentially this is just the ability to control the backgrounder. The background is a service that does jobs on Tableau Server, and with this you can essentially control how many jobs and sort of how much of the backgrounders a particular site is taking up. So here on the screen you can see, let me just get my I haven't even got my annotator. Man, you can tell I haven't done a video in a while because I don't even have my annotator running. I normally always have that. So if we get my annotator out, you can see here we have a list of sites, and these sites in most enterprise organizations, you have more than one site. A site is essentially like a part of the organization in Tableau Server speak. But here on the right hand side, you have a bunch of resource limits. So you have the subscriptions, extracts, flows, and so on and so forth. And what you can do is you can essentially set a limit. So you can actually say, look, this is the current set of defaults that are going to be applied across the board. And you can set these and you can sort of apply them. But more importantly, you get like a nice visual table display of how this is working. The reason this is important is because in some businesses, in some organizations, they split up the server into different organizational units and sites. The reason that is for legal reasons, you might not be able to, for example, say have HR data available to everyone in the organization. So the way you solve that is you put it on a separate site and you give only the people who have access to that data access to that site. And what you want to do is you make sure that you can, at an overall level, guarantee a good level of service to everyone, not just one particular team. So this allows you to sort of standardize that. So if one or part of the organization wants to run away with background resources, you can't really stop them at the moment other than sort of phoning them and telling them, hey, you need to sort of pare down the number of backgrounders you guys are running. At the moment, that's not sort of possible, but now this will be once this sort of rolls out. So that would be a really nice feature for admins and people who use server on premise. For Tableau Online, this isn't a problem because you don't need to manage this. So if you're a Tableau Online user, this is sort of non-consequential, but if you're a Tableau Server user, this is going to be great. If we move over to customize view data now, oh my God, this is such a good feature. This is probably one of those features where you don't understand how good it is until you use it. Or if you start learning Tableau today and you see this, you think this has always been part of the software, and it's not. This is a feature that I'd consider low-hanging fruit. It's been an idea in the ideas forum for absolutely ages, But finally, Tableau are going to be improving the way that you can view data in Tableau. And I know that sounds crazy, but if you ever go to a data point, right click it, open it up and view the data, it shows you a table, and that table is pretty much standard. It has one format and one design. What they're doing is enhancing that. So not only can you choose which columns show, you can change their order. You can even export different tables in a specific way. And the great thing about this is it gives a lot more customization. And they've also gone a little bit further and they've made sure that it's compatible with accessibility guidelines that Tableau already supports. So it's a really nice feature. So I'm not going to sort of murder this too much now because it's the kind of thing I just have to show you, but this is going to be really, really nice. If we go to the next one, this is essentially a new connector labeled data freshness Parquet. This is the ability to essentially connect to, I believe, let me just double read this. So build solutions that connect Tableau much more easily and efficiently with a variety of data sources and freshness technologies that use Tableau. There's a lot of jargon. You can now use the REST API to ingest data from Parquet into Tableau Online and Tableau Server. So this is where I'm like, okay, what is Parquet? I think I know what it is. Let's say file format. Let's just do that and see what comes up. Databricks. I wanted to say that it had something to do with AWS, but now why is AWS coming into my mind? Let me do this. Let's say Parquet and let's just do AWS. Let's see, where am I getting this association? Okay, so and optimize Parquet, right? Okay. So what I'm doing here is I'm just trying to understand, where did I get? Let's just search Parquet and see what comes up. There's also a place apparently. Apache Parquet documentation. Okay. Let's go to this. This seems to be the thing that keeps coming up. You know what? I'm gonna take a humble note here and say I'm not entirely sure, because I wanted to say it had something to do with files in S3, but that doesn't seem to be what it is, unless I may be confusing services in AWS with this particular feature. But nonetheless, come back to a future video to find out more. Sometimes you don't know, you just don't know. Right, new accelerators on Tableau Exchange. Okay, so this is essentially what I think is going to be now the march of new capabilities on the Tableau Exchange. The accelerators are essentially dashboards. They're templates that you can download and get started without having to do stuff. Now, I was really critical of this part of the extension gallery. Now, if I right click on some of these links, I think some of these have actually been already done and released, so we can go check them out. I'm going to open all of them. I probably could have done this much faster, but I'll just do it this way. Okay, so we've opened all of them. They're all in tabs. I'll make sure they're all loaded. Now let's go check them out. So the first one, email marketing campaigns. Okay, we've got a little description and we've got a dashboard. Cool. Here we go. Banking loans. So this is like a loan dashboard about loans, essentially. Okay. Fraudulent claims, so fraud detection. And remember, these are ticking specific boxes. Okay, one of the links didn't work. It's not a good start. If you're going to sort of promote new ones, then I guess make sure the links work. But nonetheless, hopefully that will, it might just be that because 21.2 is definitely not out. Oh wait, 21.2 is out, so it should be fine. But let's see if we remove the version. Does this do anything different? No, it doesn't. Okay, no worries. I don't know what actually triggered that. So 1, 2, 3, 4. The fourth link, 1, 2, 3, 4. Sales, advanced plus target is what triggered that. So that's a broken link. We'll come back to that later. Insurance claims. Here we go. Insurance dashboards. We've got a bunch of charts there. Pretty cool. I'm not going through each of the tabs. That would take forever. I'm just looking at the landing page and seeing what we see. Okay, accounts receivable. Okay, yeah, lots of tables. Call center, expert. So call center monitoring. Okay, so yeah, you know, I still stand by what I said. Look, these are average dashboards. They don't have any styling. They don't have any formatting. They're essentially supposed to be vanilla, I think, to meet the needs of many. So you can go in there, get ideas, steal them, get started, immediately create some value as soon as you get into Tableau. Is it what people are building best practice in Tableau? No. Is it what the community is sort of knocking out on Tableau Public? No, it's not. Last time I did a showcase where I went to Tableau Public and I searched the same topics and found better examples of dashboards. So I think the jury's still out on that, but these things take time. You know, when you look at Apple and the App Store, the first version of the App Store was diabolical and it had a lot of teething problems. And essentially you have to figure these things out. You have to figure out what works by just putting something out there and seeing what people pick up. So I'm not going to critique that aspect of it. At least we're getting visibility. At least we're seeing updates, and that's a good thing. Right, new connectors on Tableau Exchange. Now, these are going to be interesting because I believe that these are probably going to be made by third parties, because the Exchange is obviously not for Tableau to build extensions. Tableau could put stuff on there, but I think the main emphasis here is for third parties to build solutions. And you can see here they actually have, and they're building things that are backwards compatible. So Tableau 2020.3 and later will support this. And if I go back, Amazon Document DB is built by AWS, which is pretty interesting. So is this what I was thinking? Is this what I was confusing? I don't know. I'm not going to try and pretend I know the answer to this. But again, it goes back to 20.3 and the developer, this is going to send you to AWS. So if you click on that, you'll go to this page, and this is the AWS page for this particular feature. And I think this must have been written. Oh yeah, so this is written for lots of different tools. So the JDBC driver for the Amazon DocumentDB managed a database provider on SQL, relational, for developers and BI tool users. Yeah, so this is going to serve for multiple tools. It just so happens that I think Tableau have enabled the capability that allows AWS to turn up and just put their connector right there. So this is actually a great example of the Exchange working. AWS, a pretty big player in the data space, can just open up a couple of developers to change some code and some of the tools, and boom, we have a connector for an AWS capability. Altinity connector for ClickHouse. I don't know what ClickHouse is, to be honest, so I'm not going to pretend to know, but hey, we've got a taco file. The taco file is the connector, is the file format. You can see here that you've got a .taco, that is the file format here, so that's why I called it a taco file. But nonetheless, yeah, new connector, that's great. Let me close all of these tabs. Let's get these out of the way and go back to the main page. Right, so we are kind of, how far are we? We're not even halfway, so we've got to pick up pace here. The Tableau Server independent gateway. Install the gateway process outside of Tableau Server. So when you install a Tableau Server, there are processes. In fact, if I get my annotation tools out, you can see that these are the processes. Now, each of these processes is responsible for doing something. I know this because I'm about to start going through my Tableau Server certification process again. So in essence, each of these processes does something different. One of the key parts of the processes used to be the gateway, and the gateway could only live inside of the Tableau platform. What essentially they've done is they've allowed you to install an independent gateway, essentially to allow you to do this elsewhere. So you can see here that the gateway, which I highlight here going across, is external. So gateway external, it means it's in E. It means we also have a new process. Now, this is interesting because I'm sure this is not the first, well, this won't be the last, process that Tableau will allow you to externalize. Things like taking backups would be really useful if, for example, you could put your repository in an external place. The repository is just where Tableau keeps its stuff. If you could put the repository elsewhere, that would be really, really cool. So again, watch the space. Let's see what happens here. But my hunch is that some of these will also end up being external. Hyperspooling monitoring. So I don't know what this means, so let's have a read. Understand when hyper writes to disk with Tableau Server Management. The resource monitoring tool will now also monitor hyperspooling. Still don't know what it is. Configure hyperspooling incidents to be notified when there is not enough memory available. So I think hyperspooling is essentially just the process of hyper being written to a disk. I think that's what it means. Let's keep reading here though. Configure hyperspooling incidents to be notified when there is not enough available memory and the Tableau Server data engine process shifts to spooling, which impacts performance. So what I'm figuring here is hyperspooling is not good and they're giving you a way to monitor it. That's I think the most basic understanding I can figure out. So yeah, hyperspooling comes up with the Tableau Server data engine. So let's go in here and search for the term spooling. This is, by the way I do research. If I don't know something, I go Google, I put the phrase in. Google helps me out because it knows what I like. I go to the documentation and get the documentation has an answer. So let's read this. Memory usage. Okay, in most cases, systems have enough memory to do these types of processing, but if there isn't enough available memory or more than 80% of RAM is utilized, the data engine shifts to spooling by temporarily writing to disk. Man, that took me forever to get to. I know what that is. I know what spooling is. I just didn't know what it was called. So the best way to think of it is your computer has lots of different ways of storing information. If I go back to this page, the most common one we know is a hard drive. So that's for storing information. When your computer switches off, when you switch it back on, the information is still on the hard drive. That's sort of long-term memory. The next type of memory is something called RAM, random access memory. That is essentially the memory that the computer, the CPU, can use instantly. When you switch your computer off, this does not stick around. What this feature is essentially saying is that it's going to allow you to monitor when Tableau has to start writing to disk because it's run out of that fast access memory. That fast access memory runs really quick. We're talking, terabytes. Well, on a server, you'd hope terabytes per second. The bandwidth between the CPU and the RAM is at that speed, but the actual information goes back and forth very quickly, which is why the bandwidth has to be really, really high. Tab is going to allow you to monitor when this is happening, so you can start to optimize your server in sort of much better ways. So this is good. It's essentially more visibility for admins, and hopefully my explanation was okay there. Slack integration monitoring. So as part of Tableau Server management, post notifications about the health of Tableau Server to Slack. This makes sense. Slack has integration with Tableau now. It's part of the Salesforce family. Of course, you'd get notifications in Slack if something's going wrong. The catch with this all is Tableau Server Management add-on. You're going to have that in order for this to work. So yes, the price of Tableau I think is going up a little bit. They keep adding add-ons and keep putting stuff away in them. So the vanilla Tableau doesn't come with all of this stuff. But again, that's something maybe another video for. Swapping root tables. Now this is for authors. So this is essentially the ability to choose which table becomes your root table. Let's say you get stuck and you realize you've built the data model up in the wrong way. The only solution you had was to rebuild the whole entire model. What you can do with this is you can just switch what the root model is and you're going to be away to the races. So this is really nice to see, and I'm going to love it. TabPY model evaluation functions. So this is interesting. I don't understand enough about Python to really know what this is off the top of my head. Let's have a look. Call model extension X has been added to Tableau specifically to call deployed models from TabPY or other analytics extensions. It gives administrators a new configuration option to control TabPY developments by disabling the execution of arbitrary Python code. Administrators can now maintain a single source of truth in Analytics Extension Server by leveraging a central version control. Interesting. I still don't know what this means. Well, improved experience by easy access deployed function in the TabPY server and the model requirements before adding it to Tableau Desktop. I think this might be a way for people who are using TabPY to essentially evaluate whether a model they're using for Tableau or in Python is actually going to work for the use case they have, without first having to bring in the function, do it, and then realize that the calculations are wrong, if that makes sense. So I think this is good. Let's look at this GIF. So you have model extension, and they've got real, yeah. And this is someone essentially testing this, I think, yeah. Profit sales, boom, boom, and they can go and test it. Okay, I think this is what this is doing, but called deployed models from TabPY or other analytics extensions. So this is the key thing. This is all that's happening here. I think what I don't understand is how is this different to what you could already do? And maybe if you know, let me know in the comments. I don't know, so I'm not going to pretend to know. Find out in a future video. This is happening a lot this time around. Filter performance optimization. Okay, so this is essentially, I think, just the improvement of the filter pane. So Tableau 2021 introduces filter performance at scale. Whether your dashboard has 1, 8, or more visualization controls, you'll have a highly responsive and consistent experience. The enhancement in filter performance will deliver a much faster experience when using show filters, session cloning, filter item selection, mark selection, tab switching, show me, screen. Okay. So when you have lots of filters in a dashboard, it does slow down. What they're saying is that shouldn't happen as much anymore. I still think there's a limit, but 8 is an unreal number of filters, but I come across many dashboards with more than 8. So they clearly have to do something to sort of bridge that gap. And I think they've done the work to do that. So let's have a look at the next one. Improvements in Esri web data connector. So connect Tableau to authenticated ArcGIS servers to extract location data from Esri. So I think it's essentially just the improvement of the connector here. So it's another connector. I would put this under data and freshness, but it's not new because it's an improvement to the existing connector. So that's why it's a separate one. The new Viz toolbar. Now this to me is a classic example of improving something because you're about to change something else. Okay, so the new Viz toolbar, this is a change to the interface. It's going across the top, and what they've done is essentially they've grouped certain activities. You can see the prominent aspects to the left hand side, and then they've got this new action section called keep track, which has subscription metrics and alerts. Then you've got exporting, which has its own things, sharing, which has its own things, and then also the ability to download data that, you know, and a bunch of other things. Commenting, which is probably going to ping stuff off elsewhere. So the top level groupings make a lot more sense, and I think it's really, really well done here. So yeah, props to Tableau for this. What I'm interested in is what it will enable in the future and how that's going to work. So that's going to be really cool. Web authoring improvements. So actions right where you want them. So actions and format analytic lines. Okay, so formatting improvements and actions are basically getting improved. I'm not going to dwell on this because this is normally stuff we already have. Web Edit is just getting them in this particular release. View acceleration. So this is interesting. Make workbooks up to 100 times faster with the push of a button. Now this is bold. This is really bold. Workbook owners can use the view acceleration button to accelerate their most important views that could use a boost in Tableau Online and Tableau Server. So there's a lot of questions about this. But all you need to know as an end user is your admin can make things faster if they switch this on. What I'm interested in now as an admin and as a sort of advanced user is, what does that actually mean? There could be a workbook which doesn't have 100x performance to be gained. And so is this just essentially taking a cache of a dashboard and instantiating it for longer periods of time? Or is it something more intelligent than that? Is it sort of dynamically looking at what people look at and then preloading that in the background so it kind of guesses your next step? And Google does this actually. When you go to Google and you hit a search page, in the background, depending on the settings your browser has, it will preload and fetch the first 3 hits because the chance of you clicking on the first 3 hits is quite high. So by already going off and getting those pages, when you then click on those things, you get an instantaneous response. And it's a really, really fast experience. That's how you perceive the Google search engine to be fast. It's not because Google is fast, it's because they're doing things in the background to give you the impression that it's fast. Same with this. So we'll hopefully see how that works when we get into it a little bit more. Automated identity migration. So this, I think, is about moving identity management from one system to another. We can see a screenshot here where we can see, I think we're moving from one domain to another. And yeah, so Tableau has released a silent identity migration job, which will move current system users to new identity service tables. This job will not interrupt or interface with any usage of Tableau, and also net new installations to operate the new identity service by default. Seamlessly transition to a more modern identity data structure that enhances your data within the Tableau Server repository with more information about the user's identity. Interesting. I don't know what's new here, and it's probably because I'm a bit out of touch with the server features, so I'll dive into that in the future. Usage-based publishing frequency for admin insights. So what's this? Usage-based publishing frequency in admin insights prioritizes updating the data in the content that's consumed, making data updates quicker in the sites that are used. For sites with low content usage, admins have the flexibility to choose if the admin insights content is published daily or weekly. So admin insights is admin insights is a data source specifically for, I think, Tableau Online, although Tableau Server users get it elsewhere in a different format. Essentially though, you can essentially change the publishing frequency for this data set. So make data reps quicker in the sites that are used. For the sites with low content usage, admin have the flexibility to choose if the admin insights content is published daily or weekly. So a little bit more flexibility. I think you have to see this in practice, because choice doesn't always mean you have the most flexibility available. You could have only one choice, and that's not flexibility. So let's wait and see what's going on there. Link tasks with prep conductor. So this was already released in the previous one, but let's see. Easily automate the orchestration of multiple flow jobs, ensuring that they happen in sequence. Building on the link task functionality launched in Tableau Prep 2021.3, you can now link tasks to run on already scheduled flows that set backup flows to run in case of a failed run. Interesting. So link task was released previously. That was pretty straightforward. But I think this capability with Prep Conductor starts to sort of take it to the next level. It's essentially an enhancement in my eyes, I think. Rather than just necessarily a new feature. The two are sort of linked. Viz load times, data source for admin insights. So this is going to essentially just give you the load times in admin insights. Again, I believe this is Tableau Online. Admin insights is a specific Tableau Online data source. You can see that it says here. So that will be good to know. So you can actually start to measure performance. That wasn't available. Tableau Server users or server admins have this already, so it's not new for them. Parameter enhancements in Tableau Prep. So in a previous release, they released a parameter enhancement. Now what they're doing in version 22.1, Tableau Prep is adding even more places where you can use parameters in your flow, as well as user enhancements. So now you can delete parameters with a single click, include parameters in SQL scripts, and include parameter overrides values when running flows using the REST API. That's pretty handy. So you can programmatically trigger a flow using the REST API and pass in an argument that goes into the parameter. That's pretty cool. That's actually pretty dynamic, because what you can do with that is you can build a flow that accepts variables, but then does a bunch of calculations in a specific way, just using an API, publishes the data to a specific place, emails or messages someone to say, hey, your data set is ready. They can go into Ask Data and start asking questions from it. So that's pretty cool. It's probably not that smooth these are sort of one of these perfect solutions, as it were, but nonetheless, this is what you're getting. So this is nice. Right, last few. Customer data platform accelerator in Tableau Online. Accelerate your time to data insights in this all-encompassing view of customers, engagement activities, including email, mobile notifications, and more. Interesting. Customer data platform accelerator. I don't know what that actually means, and this description is not that clear. So maybe one for the team. I'll have to ask and find out more. Prep flow notifications in Slack. Again, Slack coming up again. Notifications going to Slack from Tableau related to flows. So that's pretty straightforward. Virtual connections for Salesforce. So this is good. Salesforce connections are really frustrating in Tableau Desktop and Tableau Prep because they don't work exactly the same way. The virtual connection is going to standardize this a lot. I think this is one of the good areas where the virtual connection can actually help, because by standardizing the connection, what you can then do is you can sort of have visibility of what people are doing, what people are using, but you can stop this thing that's quite easy to do with Salesforce, which is lots of people connecting and creating Salesforce views, but they haven't done the due diligence to check how those views should come together and how necessarily those things work. So this will allow someone to create something, verify it, give it a star, and then lots of people can trust it and just get on with using it rather than worrying if they've talked to the admin to make sure they've got the right objects and fields from Salesforce to work together with Tableau. Right, last row, improved Oauth login process. I think that sounds exactly like what it says. The process is better. I don't know much about Oauth. It's an authentication. So what is Oauth? What does the term Oauth stand for? I've seen this term all the time, but I've never actually open authorization. Okay, well, yeah, but what does that actually mean? What I can say is when you're working with APIs, authorization is a really important concept. And in essence, the best way to think of it is, let's say you want to log into Tableau, but you don't want to use a manual Tableau login to type a username and password. What you have to do is Tableau has to trust another process to do that checking to make sure you're you. So if I'm going to build an application and I want the application to take charge of checking who you are, let's say the application is a mobile banking app, Tableau in that instance is going to need to hand over the trust to the banking app to check that I am Tim. The banking app will need to do its own checks, logins, and so on and so forth. You could even use an enterprise login. Now, when that banking app says, yes, this is Tim, it passes back a token and an authorization. And then the existing Tableau server uses that. In this case, essentially what they're doing is improving that login experience. So it's a little bit smoother, but they're not really changing the infrastructure of how that works. Right, virtual connections integrated with Tableau Catalog. Virtual connections, a new content type. I think these are going to be available now in Catalog. So previously they weren't in Catalog, and Catalog is supposed to be the metadata view of Tableau. So now that they're in there, you can start to see what people are doing with them, where they're being used up and downstream. And then of course the API will also assume have this capability. So that's pretty good. This will open up lineage capabilities that will shine a light on who or what is using specific virtual connections to speed up collaborations or reduce disruption when changes happen. So avoid breaking people's work by going in and looking at the virtual connections and seeing who's using them. That's pretty good. The last one for this is the Embedding API version 3.1. Now this, what is this? So this is like a portal. This, what we're looking at here is like a portal, and someone's built it. Essentially, it's a custom Tableau portal. On the left-hand side, you've got a navigation that goes to different views, and over here you have a window that loads up the dashboard. And depending on what you click, it loads the dashboard. Now, what is interesting about this is that up here you have some things that aren't Tableau. So everything I'm highlighting in blue is not part of Tableau. It's been built into an application, a bit like the banking app I was telling you about. And the embedding API is being improved to enable this to become a more seamless experience. If you want to check out some content on this, go check out my friend Andre. He has a great YouTube channel. I'll put a link in the description so you can go check him out. I'll put it at the top so you don't have to scroll too far for it. Go check him out because he covers all of this stuff really well, and he's a developer, so he actually understands the importance of why these things coming together makes a lot of sense. Okay. So that is it. That's all the features. We've gone through like a very sort of brief overview of what's coming soon. Starting probably next week or this week, I'll start making videos on the features that are available already in Tableau Online. But other than that, thank you for watching. And if you've made it all the way to the very end, let me know what you thought of this video and the features coming in 2022.1. And yeah, I'll catch you in the next one. Take it easy.